Natural Monopoly, Part 1, a microeconomics video lesson by Eric Almaroth. This is the table of product market structures we've seen a couple of times now. This shows the 4 different markets of the product market, with 5 different aspects in each market. The aspects have to do with number of firms, differentiated or homogeneous products, ease of entry and exit into this market, price setting power, and non-price competition, which generally refers to advertising. The 4 markets we're going to be looking at and graphing, one we already have accomplished and we're done with, is perfect competition. Monopolistic competition is another one, oligopoly is another one, and the one we're looking at this time is monopoly. These are the 4 markets of the product market. Monopoly, by definition, is one business or one firm in a market. It is the only product of its kind. Blocked entry into this market, especially in the sense that natural monopolies in this lesson have complete control of their price-setting power. And in terms of advertising, they won't do it to compete, but they might do it just for public relations to improve the perception of their company. We're mainly talking about companies that are large, like utilities and phone companies and sewer companies, ones that we don't really have much of a choice in choosing our provider. So these are the 5 aspects of a monopoly, and think of a monopoly as a non-competitive market. It can't be since there's only one, and as we studied early on, the 4 aspects of capitalism are right to own property, which creates profit incentive, which creates consumer choice, and then there's competition. Well, in this market, with only one business in a market, there's no competition. Consumers therefore don't have choices. Other businesses don't have much incentive to try to enter into this market, and that interferes with people's right to own property. So this is not really a capitalistic entity we're looking at here. So next, let's have a look at the natural monopoly graph. The first thing we look at with any graph is the demand curve. What is the demand curve going to be doing for this monopoly? It's going to be steep because there are not many close substitutes. That means it's relatively inelastic. Elasticity has to do with the amount of substitutes. In our last market, where there were many options for identical substitutes, it was perfectly flat, as in perfectly elastic. If there were no substitutes at all, and this was the only place to get anything even close to this particular good, it would be perfectly inelastic. This is slightly inelastic because in this market, say we're talking about a power company, yes, there's not many close substitutes for the electricity that comes to your house, but there are indeed substitutes. You could go out and pay a lot of money and have solar panels put on your house. You could buy a generator. For some people, these aren't practical substitutes. For most people, they're not. So we have to choose our particular power company option to pay that bill to PG&E. If you went out and bought a generator and had to fill it with gas once every couple of weeks, you'd find that very inconvenient. So we see those are substitutes, but they're just not that close of substitutes. That's why this is a fairly inelastic demand curve. Secondly, we look at our marginal revenue curve, which is not the demand in this market. It falls faster than the demand curve for the reasons we studied in the candy basket lesson. When this firm drops its price to increase quantity, it's going to have to give every previous customer who was willing to pay that higher price the same price, and therefore marginal revenue will fall more quickly than demand. The profit maximizing point of output, well, we know about that. It's MR equals MC. Oh, but wait a minute, there is no MC curve. We're going to need to put that in. There it is. Now we can find MR equals MC equilibrium to determine the profit maximizing point of output right here. We are not going to price there. That is just the quantity this firm is going to produce. Now, where are they going to price is the next question. Well, they want to charge as high a price as they can, but as high as they can go is what the consumers are willing to pay at that quantity on the demand curve at this point right here. A. So that will be the price point. It's higher than the MR equals MC equilibrium, and only in one market, which was perfect competition, will a firm price where MR equals MC. Number 7, the average total cost profit curve. So we're going to draw an average total cost profit curve, which means it's going to be lower than point A, where it hits the quantity line. This determines the cost amount at this unit of output, right here. And if we multiply that particular cost of that unit times the quantity of output, we'll have our total cost. This provides us enough information to be able to draw in our profit box region, which is this green area. I always like to see these diagonal slash lines to fill it in, and it labeled profit. Next, we're going to look at some pricing points for various reasons I'll explain in a minute. The first is called productive efficiency. This is the bottom of the average total cost curve, often referred to as the least cost point of output. Productive efficiency, right there. Then we look at allocative efficiency. This is a more technical term, meaning socially optimal point of output. The point of output society would prefer for this firm to distribute the resources it is controlling. This is the point right here where marginal cost equals demand equals price. Notice that this also is a larger output and less of a price than this firm is previously charging. The other one is called the fair return price, which is right here, where the average total cost intersects the demand curve, right here. This is also referred to as zero economic profit, because if price is exactly at the average total cost point, that's zero economic profit. The reason we're looking at these cost and pricing points is in this particular type of market, such as a natural monopoly, this is the type of a business the government might come in and regulate. This is an important necessity product, and consumers don't have any real power to choose other options. So the government might come in and regulate and choose for them what price they might charge. It might say to them, you should charge the fair return price. You'll make zero economic profit there. That's adequate enough. We're going to insist you regulate and make sure that you do that. Maybe they'll come in and say, no, we'd like you to be at the allocatively efficient point, which is lower and producing even more quantity. But this would mean the firm would be operating at a loss. So then the government would probably subsidize them to give them some funds so that they do not operate at a loss and can pay their bills. The average total cost minimum also would be a loss, and even a greater quantity, so the government might have to subsidize them even more to bring them up to a point by giving them funds to not be operating at a loss. So that's why we're looking at these fair return price, allocative efficiency point, and productive efficiency. These are pricing points the government might factor into how they might regulate this very important business to society, which is non-competitive. Number 13, the consumer surplus area, which is this right here. We've learned on the demand curve, as it goes above A, we see many points where consumers were willing to pay higher prices for less quantity levels. These consumers at A no longer have to pay those higher prices, so that is more money in their pockets we refer to as consumer surplus. This concludes the lesson on natural monopoly, Part 1, the end.